Hello and welcome to today's meeting of Democrats of Greater Tucson. My name is Larry Bodine and I'll be your host today. Today we have with us Juan Padrés. Juan, good to see you finally on board. We'll get right back to you in just a second, Juan. We do have a few announcements as we do at every meeting. Kathy Ramage-White, tell us what's going on with membership and
well, hey everyone, hope you're all feeling great. Last week with Tim Stellar, we had a sizable number of individuals. What was it, Larry? Was it almost 80 people that got online?
Yes, that's right.
So that's super, but I know that not all of those 80 people have signed up for DGT. All you have to do is go to the DGT, and when you get into that, it says sign up now. You sign up, and it's only $20. Glad that you all are here. Hopefully you will have an opportunity or will take an opportunity to sign on up and be a member of the Democrats of Greater Tucson. Okay, Larry, back to you.
Well, thank you very much. That was terrific. Let's turn now to Sandy Binion. Sandy, tell us about what's coming up in our future meetings.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, and I'm Sandy Binion, and I arranged for all the speakers. And thank you, Juan, for signing up to speak to us today. To round out the rest of this month, starting with next week, we have Joyce Jones-Ivy, who is the only Democrat on the Oro Valley Board of Supervisors. And interestingly enough, they have more members on their board than the Tucson board has on their board. And then we have Akimi Ova-Vila. His title is acting mayor of South Tucson, but what he tells me is that means he's the assistant mayor, and he can't give me any better explanation as to why they originally called it the acting mayor, but that's what he is. And then to round out this month, we're going to have Sister Ningle, who is the state representative from LD10, and she's going to tell us about all the horrible and maybe a few good things that the Arizona legislature has done this round. It's very depressing as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that takes us through the rest of this month.
And also, thank you for setting up all of those speakers. It's just terrific. Let me get to the introduction. We have with us today Juan Francisco Padrés, and he's a candidate for Tucson City Council in Ward 3. So the ward runs from Speedway north to River Road, and then from Swan all the way to Silver Bell Road. And Juan is an entrepreneur and small business owner. He runs an export-import company specializing in craft beer, wine, and spirits, primarily from Mexico. In the primary, he's facing environmentalist Kevin Dahl. In 2020, Juan ran for the Pima County Board of Supervisors in the Democratic primary. And Juan is an active member of the community. He currently serves as president of the nonprofit Tucson Sister Cities, commissioner on the Pima County Small Business Commission, and he's on the Pima County Workforce Investment Board. Juan identifies Tucson's 5 biggest challenges as poverty, affordable housing, economic development, public transportation, and public safety. And with that, Juan, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, once again, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I wish we could be in person and be able to see all of your faces all at once. That would be awesome. But almost there. I think by the end of the summer, hopefully, things will start getting back to normal. And then at that time, maybe we can have a beer. But thank you again for having me. So again, my name is Juan Francisco Padrés. I'll go through this briefly as Larry gave already a pretty good presentation of myself. I'm a native of Nogales, Sonora. I'm a Nogalense. I am an 8th generation Sonoran. I came to Tucson in 1999 to study at the University of Arizona, where I earned my Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and later my Master's of Business Administration in 2009. I have been married for 10 years to my wife, Paloma, and I have 2 girls, 5 and 3. and a beagle named Bruno. I also have 2 older sisters that are in that picture in my MBA graduation. One is a teacher of here in Tucson at Roberts Naylor, and the other one is a teacher in the Nogales Unified School District. She teaches 8th grade Spanish. I still have both my parents. Dad is 82, mom is 73, and they live in Nogales, Arizona. So about what I do, Larry mentioned, I do import craft beer, wine, and spirits from Mexico, and I also export some products from here, from Arizona over there. And we sell to distributors, or we self-distribute. And this is a small company I run with my wife. Prior to that, I was the public affairs and business development manager for the startup Too Simple, which is now, last month they filed for their IPO, which is their initial public offering. They are now on NASDAQ and out of Tucson. So it was a great experience working with them. Prior to that, I worked for the city of Tucson as an economic development international trade specialist. I spent 6 years there at the city manager's office. And that's in part where I learned about local municipal government, which was a great experience. And prior to that, I worked for 2 Fortune 100 companies. One for JP Morgan Chase, the other for Wells Fargo Home Mortgage, one as a quality assurance manager and the other as a loss mitigation specialist. And then prior to that, I started off my career as a financial and insurance services agent with Farmers Insurance. I had my own insurance agency, the JP Insurance Agency. And I also had a restaurant, and it turned into a nightclub at night. It was called Chile Verde. That's the logo. And Central Lounge, you'll see the logo there. So I've been around different ventures throughout my career. I just turned 40 in January, so I think I've done quite a few interesting things in addition to running for office last year. On my volunteer experience, I'm currently president of the Tucson nonprofit Tucson Sister Cities Inc., and I'm a precinct committeeman for precinct recently appointed for precinct 89. Just formally resigned the Pima County Small Business Commission and the Workforce Investment Board to focus on running and my business. But I'm also a former member of the Arizona-Mexico Commission, Arizona Association for Economic Development, SALEO, which is a Southern Arizona Logistics Education Organization, the Emerging Leaders Council from Tucson Metro Chamber, and I'm a Flynn Brown Fellow. And a couple pictures of me speaking at both Tucson Sister Cities and the Arizona-Mexico Commission. So why am I running? And I had the same slide last year of the why am I running. So, and I'm going to tell you a little story. Last time I focused too much on statistics. Now I'm going to tell you a story, a very recent story. So it starts with this map. So because of COVID, my in-laws came to Tucson, and they stayed with us, hunkered down here for about 3 months. Everything was closed, so they wanted to be with the grandkids, and we quarantined together. And we had a lot of dinners together here at home. My in-laws, as well as my wife, are from a small city called Navojoa, Sonora, which is in the southern tip of the state of Sonora. That's right at the border with Sinaloa. I'm from Nogales, as I mentioned, and of course we live in Tucson. But so having dinner, we were talking about multiple things, and every Sonoran, if you grew up in Sonora, you would spend time in Tucson. I mean, Tucson is kind of home to Sonorans. This is where you come for shopping. This is where you come for summer vacation, for summer camp, for school, whether it be high school or college. So Tucson is a very big part of Sonoran culture, and it's the largest U.S. city closest to the border for us. So this is where everybody comes, and people have been coming here for, and I want to say centuries. I mean, I have family who's been trading here since the 1870s, and let alone shoppers that come here. But my in-laws had a house here when they were younger, and they would come here, spend a couple of weeks in the summer, and we were having dinner the other night, and my mother-in-law says, "What happened to Tucson?" I was like, "How so?" It's like when we used to come here in the 70s and the 80s, it was vibrant. There was great shopping. Everything was new. You could go places. It was a wonderful place. And recently, she says, we go walking or driving in the evenings, and she mentioned it's lost its luster. There's no more shopping. The stores are empty. said the pavement, what happened to the streets? He said they're starting to look like the ones from Navajo. It's not a compliment. So what happened? It's not the same Tucson we remember when we were younger, that we brought the girls here, my wife and her sister, to come. So and she asked me, point blank, what you're in politics and you've worked in government. What happened? Please tell me. And that was a very captivating question that I couldn't answer in just one. So I had to think about it. It's like, what happened to Tucson? And like them, there's a lot of people who ask the same thing, whether it's community members or people from the outside. But what I thought was very interesting is somebody from the outside telling you, listen, things have changed. What's wrong? Well, I have a theory. And, of course, there's multiple theories and everybody can come to different conclusions. But I think we have a problem. And I think it is our biggest problem. And that is a lot of what drives some of these issues. So what is Tucson's biggest problem, if you ask? And I would have to say, and as I've mentioned it before, I think our biggest problem is poverty. I think poverty is the number one factor in Tucson that is stopping us, in essence, from prosperity. I think it's out there. It's very evident. It's starting to get even more notorious, especially in the wake of the COVID pandemic. I think what the pandemic did is it's accelerated, and we probably have a lot higher rate than we did last year. And I'm not going to get into numbers, but just observing what's going on in our community, what we see, what we read about in the paper, what you experience when you drive at night, I think poverty is the main issue. And there's other candidates running. There's, we had an election last year. We have an election this year. And you start hearing, we need to address economic justice. We need to address social justice, climate justice, food justice. But there's a common denominator in all of these things, and it is addressing poverty. So all of these, I like to say, the justices are about poverty, are about helping the poor, are about helping the poor economically, giving them the opportunity, whether it's through jobs or some kind of income, to help them out. I think we focus on these things. Climate justice, it affects the most vulnerable in the community. It affects the elderly. It affects, ultimately, it's the poor. Food justice, who has access to the right types of food, and ultimately it is that it's people who living in poverty that are affected, and all of these things are rationalizations of the big issue in our community, which is poverty. I'd like to talk one more slide on poverty. Poverty affects every aspect in our community, everything from pollution to health, crime, economy, education, and homelessness. I mean, health, let's start with health. Poorer people don't have access because to the same types of healthy foods. It's much cheaper, we all know, to go to McDonald's and load up on Big Macs or fries than actually go cook some salmon and salad. Obesity is an issue. Smoking is an issue, and there's a tendency with certain demographics. Crime. Obviously, we won't get that too much into that one. It's pretty obvious. Lack of opportunity leads people into commit crimes for necessity, for whatever reason. But it is a derivative. Pollution. People. When was the last time that somebody in poverty you saw driving a Prius? Or putting solar panels on their home. The reality is, the poverty factor. They're probably driving a much older car that gives you 8 miles a gallon and pollutes more. So I mean, it's all intertwined. The economy. If we have a poor community, their businesses don't perform because there are not enough customers. The tax base suffers, which means there's less money in the city coffers to go around to basic services, even help much of those programs. Education, poverty. How do you expect children on an empty stomach to learn, or that their parents are not home because they're working 2 or 3 jobs? Who's going to read to them? They don't have those advantages, and it's all intertwined. And of course, homelessness, which is the most obvious. It is a derivative of, but it's mental health and it's resources to helping these people overcome some of these aspects. So, we talk about in government, we talk about as a society, oh, we have a crime issue, we have an education issue, we have a homelessness issue, we have a health issue, but the reality is it is a poverty issue. And I don't think we look at it that way. And I think that's the way to mitigate this is through both being proactive and reactive. Being proactive is, addressing poverty so it doesn't get to crime or a lack of education or health. And then being reactive, of course, that, sometimes things get out of hand at that point, or, you need to mitigate, you need to react to, somebody may have a health issue now, we got to get them better. So I just wanted to share that with you, those thoughts of where I'm coming. So, and I think I said this last time I spoke here, never come to the table with a problem without a solution. And I wish there was a simple solution to this. And I don't think there's a silver bullet or a magic wand that we can magically just say poverty go away. It requires a lot of different things and a multi-pronged approach to start to even mitigate poverty. Let alone eliminating. Let's just mitigate it. And I think that'll make a difference. So I'm running on these items. Number one, economic development. We need to attract jobs and investment to Tucson. If we don't have the jobs, if we don't have the investment, there are no opportunities for our citizens to be able to make a decent living, earn a livable wage, and provide for themselves and for their family. So that's number one. We need to attract the jobs. Number two, we need to promote business retention and expansion. I used to do insurance, and I can tell you that it's a lot easier to maintain a client than attract a new one. So let's talk to our local businesses and ask them, work with them. How can they stay in Tucson, hire more people by growing? I mean, I think that's very important. It's a lot easier than bringing in a new company. And if they grow, we grow with them. They'll be able to hire more of our community. Incentivize sustainable development in the stressed areas. I drive by Fort Lowell and First Avenue just about every day, and there's the Amphi Plaza. It's been decaying for years. Nobody does anything with it. There's no new tenants, and it's only getting worse and worse. It's boarded up. There's a lot of homeless people there. I once got out there. There's syringes. I mean, there's issues in that area. So how do we incentivize for somebody to come and say, hey, let's invest in this property. Let's activate it again where it'll bring life back to this part of town. So I think it can be done. Incentivizing the owner or a group of people or organizations to come in and do something. And things like easing zoning and parking regulations to accommodate mixed use development really help. This is a commercial plaza, and I'm using this one just as an example. That what if there's a lack of affordable housing? Why can't we do half of it commercial and the other half start building up? But we need to provide the zoning for that and the parking requirements. Be a little bit more lenient to make it interesting for somebody to come and say, hey, we can do this. It's actually an interesting business case. And of course, lastly, on this end, promoting workforce development. As a former economic development specialist, the one thing companies look for when they visit a municipality is the quality of the workforce. If we come to your community, can we fill the positions in our jobs and that our company requires? And in many cases it's no. So we have to work with school, with different school districts, with community colleges, with the universities, and say, hey, these are the jobs that are in demand. Let's focus on these, and let's push our students in that direction if they need, if they have the talents or they have the willingness. I think it's very important. I touched a little bit about it right now. Affordable housing, it's a big issue right now, as you all know. Rents have gone up through the roof. Property values have gone up. So it is more and more difficult to find affordable housing for our workforce. So we need to increase the amount of housing units in the city's core. The city's core, mostly a lot of it is in Ward 3, and there's opportunities there. Like that Amphi Plaza, can we make it into affordable housing? Can we buy it? Can we get investors to do it? So can we purchase? The city can purchase or repurpose city land for residential use. I mean, maybe we should build it or have, contract somebody else to do it. But these are the things that may need to happen to be able to accommodate, because this severe increase in residential doesn't have end in sight, and it could negatively affect us. If you have employment centers with no workforce, that's not good either. Ideas are to eliminate impact fees for affordable housing units. You gotta sweeten the pie a little bit for somebody coming and say, okay, I'm going to put my money there, but how can you help me? So I think there's ways to do this, and of course partnering with nonprofit groups to operate and build and operate affordable housing. The city can do a lot of things, but I think in many cases it's better to partner with the private sector nonprofits to do a lot of these things, and it is both have skin in the game. Transportation, one of the things I keep hearing, and I talked, and by the way, these things that I'm talking about are a product of talking to over 1,000 people in the last couple months on what they want, and believe it or not, clean streets, sidewalks, medians, and washes, let alone paving, which is a big thing. But our streets are actually pretty bad. Clean are pretty dirty. There's a lot of weeds. There's if you walk, I walk all over this area, and there's a lot of garbage. And let's blame aside on it who threw the garbage or whatever, but it needs to be clean. It gives a very bad impression, and it affects our quality of life. Absolutely. Fund and implement the Complete Streets program. That's in place, but we need to accelerate that. There's a definitely huge need for sidewalks in many parts of town. We don't live in a walkable community, and that is an issue. We need to diversify our public transportation system to accommodate more users. I don't think a one size fits all is good. And although SunTrans, SunVan, SunLink are good, I think there's work to be done there. As to our demographics are changing, people are moving to different parts of town, and we need to be able to cater to them. As to what are the needs of the third decade of the 21st century. It's a different workforce, and I think it's necessary to revisit that. And then of course create and implement an electric vehicle charging station plan. We all know we're going that direction. Electric vehicles are the future, and we need to stay ahead of the game on that. One of the deterrents in the future will be a lack of charging stations. You start seeing companies come in, or students, everything, and everybody's going that. And if you don't have the infrastructure for that, you're now at a disadvantage. And and it's twofold here. There's an economic side, and of course there's an environmental side. The environmental side is if you make it easier for everybody, having it readily available, it encourages people to go with an electric vehicle and not worry about the charging. And of course, on the economic side is the city has the proper infrastructure for the future. Convert city vehicles to electric power. There is no reason why a building inspector has to be driving a SUV or a Ford Taurus that gives you 12 miles a gallon. Why? When they can go on a nice electric vehicle or hybrid, they're just going to go to the construction site and come back and issue a permit. There is no reason why the water meter readers are driving a pickup truck with cab for two people. I mean, in certain situations, I understand it's needed, et cetera, but the large majority of the city fleet could potentially be converted to electric power. So I think we need to start replacing that. And I know they've been doing it, but it has to be done at a faster rate. We have to lead by example as to how we do business. And lastly, the number one thing I heard while knocking on doors is repaving of neglected neighborhood streets. Now here's a good one. Our arterials are actually pretty good now. The Broadways and Speedways and Grants, and even some of the collectors, like Country Club, or you've seen improvement with the different propositions that have been passed, and that's evident. but it's the neglected neighborhood streets that are causing heartache to a lot of the residents. I talked to a resident who had been living at his house since like 1971, and he told me, I have never seen my street paved. They've patched up some pretty bad holes, but it's never been repaved. He says, says I need an SUV just to come in and out because I clearly I was walking that neighborhood and it was pretty bad. So, I mean, and again, that's a quality of life issue. I mean, it's unfortunate. I understand the whys, but I think there's ways to do this too and accommodate because, you know, ultimately that's what the city does, is provide a service to its constituents. And lastly on this, and this is a big topic, and in many cases, it's the elephant in the room. It's public safety. And at least in Ward 3, and probably throughout the city, but focusing on Ward 3, public safety is a big issue. We have the highest crime rate in the city, and that is not acceptable. It affects us all. So the number one thing I am proposing on public safety is just decrease the city's overall crime rate. It's that simple. What do we need to do to bring it down? You've probably all read it. You've seen it on TV. You know, it's like there's been a murder spree in Tucson. You know, you read about it every other day of a shooting and somebody dying, and it's happened just outside my house. The guy with, if you recall, the guy with the bayonet that got shot, that happened the street next over. I couldn't get into my neighborhood because it was all blocked, and what happened, and you know, so it touches everybody. So I do agree. We do need to properly fund our police department. We need to reduce attrition and increase attraction of officers and public safety personnel. We do need to rethink how we police, protect and serve our community. I think that's a big issue throughout the country, and Tucson's now different. I think we need to modernize in how we do police work and and what does that entail? And who does it? So I think it's an ongoing conversation that needs scrutiny and new ideas per se. We need to increase the community trust and participation in police officers. I think that's a big issue. I think there is a distrust right now going in Tucson and possibly throughout the entire country that people are no longer trusting police officers, and that's terrible. We need to do something as a community to gain that trust back, and having that trust may potentially save lives. And when I say lives, save lives, everybody says, oh, you know, there's another shooting, but it goes far beyond that. You know, everything from domestic violence to burglary. But, you know, we live in a city where people get run over all the time, and we need to mitigate that. Safer streets and roads. I think there's a lack of resources on that end, and you see street racing. I mean, I see all the time cars going 60 miles an hour down Fort Lowell. And it's very dangerous, especially at night, where there's homeless people sometimes crossing the street in unmarked, pieces of pavement. And, you know, they have a blanket on. You won't see them till they're probably 5 feet in front of you, and the worst things happen. So, you know, a lot of that is enforcement. People, if they know that they're not going to get caught, they're going to speed. Yes, I'm guilty. Sometimes I go a little bit faster. I don't go do 60, but, you know, I think everybody does. And yeah, that has to stop, because it's only a matter of time, because that somebody else will get run over. So public safety is not just, it's crime. It's protecting our community. And it is an issue. It is an issue to the residents of Ward 3. It is an issue to me, and I think it's an issue to Tucson. So we need to work on that one. I'm going to conclude my comments here with a few pictures, and then take it over to questions. I read you my personal resume. I read you my volunteering experiences, and I don't do that. I'm doing it to try to make a point. And the point that I'm trying to make is, as a candidate, I have a very, very diverse background, and I've worked in multiple industries as a business owner, in the private sector, in the public sector. And, you know, I understand Tucson. I've been working here. I've been promoting it. I've done PSAs. I've worked with mayors, county supervisors, state legislators, and in every different aspect. You know, the top right picture. I mean, well, depends how you're looking. The one I'm Mayor Rothschild and the lady in red, she's a mayor of Hermosillo. Bottom picture, Mayor Rothschild with the mayor of Obregón, with Supervisor, rest in peace, Elias, filming a PSA. I've worked with, then it was Council Member Romero, now Mayor Romero. I've worked with, got to work with our former Supervisor Valadez and Sharon Bronson. I've been at this. I've been working with different members in our community for years now, and understand the needs of what the community needs and how do we go about it. And that's why I'm running. There's a lot of issues, but I think there's a lack of focus. And in my opinion, it is poverty. And it would be my pleasure to be able to be elected and start working from day one on how do we mitigate these things to make Tucson a much better place to live. So with that, I would love to open it up for questions.
Thanks very much, Juan. Jackie.
We keep accommodating poverty. We don't solve it. We accommodate it. Like, let's make buildings that have half commercial and half residential. People don't want to live like that. They're hungry. They're out of work. They're not getting paid $15 an hour. And you won't have people out in the streets frustrated on drugs and not willing to respect the law because they don't have a life. They can't make a life for themselves on less than $15 an hour, single mothers and so forth.
If I may say something on that, well, I mean, it's a very complex topic. And when we talk about poverty, I think there's, see if you can see me with the camera, there's multiple levels of poverty. There is the very poor that are homeless, that have nothing but whatever they're wearing. And then you have a family of 4 living on, $32,000 a year. That's still poor. So the needs are different. You have to, maybe in one instance, as you mentioned, somebody just needs to get by that one night. I mean, they have a long way to go, but maybe somebody else just needs, a couple bucks more an hour or childcare or something to make their lives a little bit different. So it's not a one size fits all. I think it just depends on how do you address it. And my feeling is the more opportunities that we can attract to Tucson, the more we can help people in different parts of town. I mean, yes, you bring a company, and if they're going to be in Marana and you live in South Tucson, it might not, that job may not be available to you, even if you're qualified for it. It's too long of a drive. You got to take the kids to school, or but if you bring in more, it'll go through different parts of town where there will be opportunities available, in addition to educational, workforce development. That really does help on that. And I mean, and I see you're shaking your head, but these are things city council can do. Remember, working in the city council, you can't. It's not like you can do everything. You can't solve. You can help. And you don't, and the powers are relatively limited as to what you can do. And that's in part what I bring to the table. I've been there. I'm not going to promise something that I know for a fact cannot be done, but I know there are things that can help. And that's what I'm trying to focus on.
You said you would like to have more industry and stuff come to Tucson. And what I've seen in the past, and that they're always trying to incentivize these companies to come here by giving them big tax cuts. Are you planning to give them big tax cuts like has always been the case in the past?
Of course. And that's a great question. Thank you. I used to work in the economic development office. So I personally wrote and helped write a lot of these memos and a lot of these tax incentives that went. And I'll be straightforward with you. Some of these companies should have not received them. And there's no due diligence done on a lot of these things. So you're absolutely right. Now, I think the word incentive has been now overused, and it's now within it's equated to free money. Here's the thing. Do we need incentives? In some cases, yes. And I'll tell you I keep using the Fort Lowell and First Avenue Amphi Plaza. The owner probably prefers to keep it dilapidated then invest money because he can write it off or she can write it off. There's no incentive for them to fix that property. They probably just pay the property taxes and that and write it off. How do you convince somebody to go into that property and say, hey, you need to fix it because the fact that you're not moving along makes us all unsafer, it looks bad, has rats in there. How can I convince you to do something about it? And that's where the incentives come in. A lot of the companies that have been receiving incentives say they need it, but they don't. And we know, and I'm not going to get into that. That's a loaded pistol question, but yes, some companies should have not got them. So when you say incentive, doesn't mean that a huge corporation like Amazon, Amazon didn't get incentives, I think. But how do you entice somebody to make betterments to their property, which ultimately all of us are gonna benefit from it. So let's keep that part in mind. And bringing in jobs to Tucson. Not every job is a good fit. Not every company is a good fit. So we have to keep an eye. Now, we can't stop a company from coming. I mean, we cannot give them an incentive for that matter. But, ultimately, we have to be out there and saying, hey, we're willing to work with you and at least have a picking, as opposed to just not having anything at all, because we need to provide those jobs to our residents. And if there's a lack of jobs, that's where we start getting into very dangerous territory.
All right, we have a question from Steve Early. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, Juan. Thanks for being here. Why does the city of Tucson not enforce the codes that exist and make property owners maintain their property? I live across the street from an empty lot that turns into a homeless camp every 3 or 4 months, and then we get them kicked out, and then 3 or 4 months they're back again. And it's not far from where you were talking about at first in Fort Lowell.
Well, from what I understand, is that there is lack of resources for enforcement. That they're running such a skeleton crew in the different departments that's last on the list. I mean, that's what I've been told. Is there an ulterior motive, or I really don't know. But having heard it firsthand is skeleton crews don't have the time to do that. So one of the things I am proposing is cleaner streets, washes, medians. So we need to find or put it into the schedule where it to clean it up. It makes a huge difference.
Why wouldn't you just hold the landowners responsible for their properties?
Again, that's all I can say is I've been told it's a lack of resources. Hopefully, if I get elected, I can answer that with more clarity.
A question from Barbara Warren.
I drive an electric vehicle, and I think they're absolutely great. But there's a whole lot of things that need to be done to address climate change, which I believe is an emergency locally, nationally, and globally. What are all the things that you would want to work to do as a council person to make a big difference in addressing beyond that? All the things.
Of course. So first and foremost, I think mayor and council have a very robust agenda when it comes to climate change. I think the mayor is a leader on that, and there's other council members. So, everything from the million trees to making things electric, solar, I think they're onto something. My goal is to support them on every angle on that end. I think, like you, I recognize that this is a very crucial time in our society and in our environment to take action. And I think the city has taken the proper action. So I would more than anything play a support role on supporting the mayor and the different council members on this. I believe the electric is the way to go. There's costs involved with that, so I think that's something that needs to be evaluated. But I do believe that as a municipality, you need to lead by example and start converting things sooner the better, and get that trend to catch throughout industry and throughout the different vicinities, throughout the neighborhoods, et cetera.
What other measures, though, to address the changing climate besides the electric vehicles? I don't know what you mean by electric. You talking about electric cars, or are you talking about something else?
Well, you can do it. Well, all of the above: cars, buses, different types of trucks. Now, there's limitations with that, of course, but it's primarily start with vehicles and go to the buses and go to vans. You can do hybrid, you can do electric. There's multiple avenues on that end. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Well, what other measures do you need to address climate change and all the issues of climate change? How can we do that as a community beyond
Well,
electrification of our
I'm
grid?
not a subject matter expert on that. I would defer to people like yourself to sit down and tell me. It's like, hey, this is what we can do. What do you think? And let's bring it to council and approved.
Do you also support like rainwater harvesting and methods to conserve our water?
Absolutely. I think those are all excellent programs that need support, financial support from mayor and council.
Let me give you a question. I was just recently delighted to read that the Condé Nast Traveler listed Tucson as the next place that you should visit. And so we have a real opportunity with all of our natural beauty for tourism to be something that creates jobs.
So tourism is a great thing for us. There's a lot of studies done, and people know this. People want to sometimes move to, if they travel to some place and they love it, they typically want to move there. So the fact that we're being promoted, as a UNESCO City of Gastronomy, as a place for cycling, for outdoors, that entices people from all over the world to come and visit, there's an opportunity for them to stay here. And that adds obviously to residents, in many cases, bringing their businesses to Tucson. So, and not only that, it really gives us exposure around the world for this. I mean, it would do wonders for a community, for economy, bringing in people to have a taste of Tucson, of the old Pueblo, and the new things that are happening in places like our downtown.
Lee, were you able to get to your question?
What I was asking about, Juan, was referring to Steve Early's comments about trashy stuff along Stone. And as I understand it, the system now is if something gets fixed, it's complaint driven. So you call or email the department that's supposed to take care of that, be able to make suggest changes to the city.
So yes, you're absolutely right. The city's been operating, and not just on that end, but in a reactive way versus proactive. So people, the city won't really address something until, somebody gets called, and sometimes a couple of times. So I think in essence, it all comes down to resources, yes, but there's also a culture aspect to it where, we need to implement that. And that's done through the bureaucracy that, don't wait for this, have crews out there, and one of the things I would love to do is have a more of a transparency page where it'll show you that you as a constituent can go in there and say, last month, we cleaned so many miles of road. We paved so many miles of road. We collected X amount of sales tax. This was the amount of 911 calls we received. So I want to start gauging that so the community can see, in many cases, where the resources are being applied and if their complaints are being addressed. I think that does not exist right now in the city. You cannot go in and say, how many miles were paved, or, how many calls did we receive? They'll publish that towards the end of the year when they're doing the budget to justify, we need a X amount more millions of dollars because we received, so many millions of calls or this. But I think it's very important for us to be measuring it. If a department comes and say, how many miles of road did you clean? And they comment, 2, it's like, why 2? It's like losing weight. You can't lose weight if you're not weighing yourself. You can say you're doing it, but you have to weigh yourself every day, and you have to keep yourself accountable to it. Last month we did 2 miles. Well, let's do 3 miles this month, and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden you've done 100, and that's wonderful. But we need that accountability, not just for us as residents, but for the actual bureaucracy.
Thank you very much.
One last question, Juan, from Jeannie Christie in the chat. You're right about the roads. Companies, that's one reason that businesses don't want to build in Tucson. And the same thing is education. what can the city council do about improving education, make it to attract businesses?
Well, yeah, that's a great one, and it's one of my favorite topics is on education. So right now, as many of you know, the county funded $10 million for quality early childhood education, and the city matched it with another $1 million. So that's a big start. But that's for early childhood education. But what about later? I think the city has the bully pulpit to sit with the school districts, with the community college, with the university, and start working together and say, what do we need? What does industry need? And are these programs available in our community? Are school counselors talking to their kids, to the students, that these opportunities exist in Tucson? And are we telling them how much they pay? So I think it's working together. While the city of Tucson really itself does not have a direct role in the school system in our community, it has an indirect one and a very powerful one, because it has the connections and the resources to bring everybody together and say, this is where we need to go. And it's ever changing. Technology is changing faster and faster. So the jobs of yesterday are not necessarily the ones that are the jobs of tomorrow. And we need to have that openly out there, say, we need the trades, we need certain, software skills, hardware skills, automotive, aerospace, can you fix a plane? This is happening in Tucson. So it's getting that via public service announcements, just working in the community and saying, we need to push these different jobs out there. And because these are career opportunities for our kids.
All right, Juan, thank you very much. We've run out of time. So Juan, I'd like you to close out our program. Tell us about how Democrats can find out more about you, and if they're interested, how they can support your campaign.
Yes, thank you for that, Larry. Please visit my website at votepadres.com. That's Padres is Padres, like the San Diego Padres. Votepadres.com. As you all know, I know you preaching to the choir here. It takes an army to win an election, and I need obviously financial resources. If you're interested in having one of my signs or even helping me walk, I really appreciate that. This is a team sport. Can't do it on my own. And I hope this conversation helps you. Then that I have the talent and the know-how to make things happen here. I really hope that you'll support my campaign to make Tucson a much better place to live. And thank you all for taking the time to listen.
Well, Juan, thank you very much. We wish you all the best in your campaign. With that, I'll close out the meeting and say thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for speaking, Juan, and we'll see you next Monday.